To many, one of the coolest things about Game of Thrones is that the inhabitants of the Dothraki Sea have their own real language. And Dothraki came hot on the heels of the real language that the Na'vi speak in Avatar, which surely the Na'vi needed when the Klingons in Star Trek have had their own whole language since 1979. And let's not forget the Elvish languages in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, especially since that was the official grandfather of the fantasy Conlangs. Conlang is short for constructed language. They're more than codes like Pig Latin, and they're not just collections of fabricated slang like the Nadzat lingo that the teen hoodlums in A Clockwork Orange speak, where droog from Russian happens to mean friend. What makes Conlangs real languages isn't the number of words they have. It helps, of course, to have a lot of words. Dothraki has thousands of words. Na'vi started with 1,500 words. Fans on websites have steadily created more. But we can see the difference between vocabulary alone and what makes a real language from a look at how Tolkien put together grand old Elvish, a conlang with several thousand words. After all, you could memorize 5,000 words of Russian and still be barely able to construct a sentence. A 4-year-old would talk rings around you. That's because you have to know how to put the words together. That is, a real language has grammar. Elvish does. In English, to make a verb past, you add an ed, wash, washed. In Elvish, wash is alu, and washed is alunet. Real languages also change over time. There's no such thing as a language that's the same today as it was 1,000 years ago. As people speak, they drift into new habits, shed old ones, make mistakes, and get creative. Today, one says, "Give us today our daily bread." In Old English, they said, "Urnagadechwam likenhlaf sulaus todag." Things change in Conlangs, too. Tolkien charted out ancient and newer versions of Elvish. When the first elves awoke at Quiviranen, in their new language, the word for people was Quendi. But in the language of one of the groups that moved away, Teleri, over time, Quendi became Pendi, with the K turning into a P. And just like real languages, Conlangs like Elvish split off into many. When the Romans transplanted Latin across Europe, French, Spanish, and Italian were born. When groups moved to different places, over time their ways of speaking grow apart, just like everything else about them. Thus, Latin's word for hand was manus, but in French it became main, while in Spain it became mano. Tolkien made sure Elvish did the same kind of thing. While that original word Quendi became Pendi among the Teleri, among the Avari, who spread throughout Middle-earth, it became Kindi when the W dropped out. The Elvish varieties Tolkien fleshed out the most are Quenya and Sindarin, and their words are different in the same way French and Spanish are. Quenya has souk for drink, Sindarin has sog. And as you know, real languages are messy. That's because they change, and change has a way of working against order, just like in a living room or on a bookshelf. Real languages are never perfectly logical. That's why Tolkien made sure that Elvish had plenty of exceptions. Lots of verbs are conjugated in ways you just have to know. Take even the word know. In the past, it's knew, which isn't explained by any of the rules in English. Oh well. In Elvish, know is ista, but knew is sinte. Oh well. The truth is, though, that Elvish is more a sketch for a real language than a whole one. For Tolkien, Elvish was a hobby rather than an attempt to create something people could actually speak. Much of the Elvish that characters in the Lord of the Rings movies speak has been made up since Tolkien by dedicated fans of Elvish based on guesses as to what Tolkien would have constructed. That's the best we can do for Elvish because there are no actual elves around to speak it for us. But the modern Conlangs go further. Dothraki, Na'vi, and Klingon are developed enough that you can actually speak them. There's a translation of Hamlet into Klingon, although performing it would mean getting used to pronouncing K with your uvula, that weird cartoony thing hanging in the back of your throat. Believe it or not, you actually do that in plenty of languages around the world, like Eskimo ones. Pronouncing Elvish is much easier, though. So, let's take our leave for now from this introduction to Conlangs in Elvish and the other 3 Conlangs discussed with a heartfelt quad conlangual valedictory. Anamarye, Hajas, Na'vis Kiyavame, Apla, and goodbye.